Thank you very much, moderator. Actually, these speeches seem very complementary and also overlapping in a way. But the issue of meaning in life, especially if we're discussing it in a psychopharmacology, then we have hope for life, hope for the world. So Kierkegaard says the biggest danger is taking place silently. Losing one's own self is through silence. Bit by bit, slowly, one loses oneself and is not even aware of this fact. If, let's say, you lose your wallet, you lose some loved one, or one of your organs, then you react to it, but you do not realize that you're losing yourself. So this is the kind of world that we are living in, where the meaning is being lost, and humans do not feel important, having no idea why they're living. So this is the kind of world that we're living. So meaning is tantamount to our life and our daily relationships. Professor Kemal Sayar, psychiatrist and psychotherapist, delivering the speech. Actually, there's this very simple question, basic question of Lev Tolstoy. He asks, with what is human living? It's a 2-hour reading of a book, and you get a whole lesson for life from Tolstoy. So this question is so telling for everybody. For what shall I live? What does my existence shed light on in this life? What does it serve? So there's death that is awaiting me. Inevitable. But in turn, what kind of meaning will I generate vis-à-vis life or living? Albert Camus, in his work Stranger, he says, the world has no meaning. Saying the world has no meaning means getting rid of all kinds of judgments of value. Then what values will we have to guide our lives? Again, we're citing İsmet Özel, the poet. So don't make me say what to do again. It is a poem, therefore no direct interpretation. It's a very poetical, great expression. And Freud finds it meaningless to ask this question.
He tells us that what's important is happiness. But happiness per se, will it be enough for us to provide a meaningful life? It's a question mark. Meaning is actually food of spirits. Spirit feeds on meaning. To answer the question why is the birth of this, Nietzsche has an aphorism. Anyone who answers why will always find a way for how. So meaning is food of our spirit. Humans can easily find false meanings for oneself. For example, in a football fan, to be a football fan, a partisanship, being a supporter of a party, ideologic party, fanaticism, we stick or bind ourselves to a false meaning and try to give order to the whole world. We are meaning. There is no any other meaning. All the meaning except what I represent is just a lie. Turkish close history is related to this negative and definite violence. Loss of meaning in modern life is another thing. In modern Western world, despite all welfare indicators, it is seen that there is a problem related to meaning. People are having difficult times in finding meaning. Actually, the literature people, for the first time, told this. T.S. Eliot, famous English poet, Eugene Ionesco, famous Romanian writer, Samuel Beckett, I think he was Scottish, I think he's Irish, not of interpreter. All these people had criticized the nihilism. Loss of meaning in modern life shows itself as apathy, alienation, break from the world, increased substance and alcohol use, loss of will to life, to hide oneself from destiny and to escape from life. To life from life means not to take any responsibility related to life, to continue to play PlayStations until one is 30 or 40. Not to be able to find a direction or for related to life. These are manifestations of loss of life. These two characters of Samuel Beckett, Vladimir and Estrogon, waits for something, but what they wait never comes. In Waiting for Godot, one of the lines says, "We must be happy." "Let's be happy," the other says. Apparently absurd, but referring to the lack of content of existing life. It has a lot of references to modern lives being away from meaning. And it is staged very frequently. Each year I see Waiting for Godot performance in Istanbul. Baumaster, an important psychology professor, he has only one book in Turkish. Now I suggest that his new book, it will be translated soon. He has a book called Meanings of Life. He looks at meaning under four topics. First, activity. To what extent we are in life and we can stand over our feet. To what extent we can change what we tackle. To what extent we live what we find in a better situation. Our capability to be effective on life. Other one is value, to prove that we are an important part of social life, to have prestige, to gather meaning from what we are doing, self-value, to be in peace with who we are, where the direction where I am coming from, not to fight with who am I, and to discover that we have an important role to play in life. Aim. Now let's come to psychotherapy. Existentialist psychotherapy deals with deeper problems. Life might be stuck until that point in some domains or in some areas. Therapist is just like a midwife, tries to help the hidden meaning, extra conscious hidden meaning convert Existentialists say that we always feel the guilt of an unlived life. We should take steps towards who we are, what we are. We have to put an effort. We have to work for finding that meaning. Yunus Emre from Anatolia says that we are born and born every time. Who will be bold of us? Maybe next year we will have such a session. We have to look at Yunus Emre from a different perspective. Each time I read him is a kind of a wise man who has seen centuries after his time. We had a book, we wrote it during Corona, Age of Anxiety. Errol and Fatih also contributed. Our epigraph was from Yunus Emre. A fly shaked and beat down an eagle. How unequal forces can beat others. A nice metaphor for Corona. Existential therapy asks us for being author of our own life, to harness the life. It expects us to refresh being one and again. It expects us to be a part of universe and to be owner of our life and to re-own our life. Not to allow anyone saying that that guy is not living. Not to allow life is passing by us while we live. Seneca has a famous saying, we think to live, but life just passes by us. Existential therapy tries to stop what is passing by. So each crisis of life is a call for consciousness in existentialist therapy. It's an opportunity to expand into spiritual area. Existential task is a result of individual search for freedom, to give up biases, to give up from deceiving oneself and to forge an organic connection with life again. We have vertical and horizontal connections in life. The vertical connections are answers to the questions for what, for the sake of what, or with Kierkegaard's extraordinarily beautiful expression, what could God mean with me? Existential vacancy comes to fore when humans cannot produce an answer to life, and this creates what Viktor Frankl calls existential crisis. When we see a crisis, we shouldn't overlook it. Therapy tells us to face with that crisis and to grow out of it. To this end, they give the example of sandstorm. If there is a sandstorm, if you are trying to around it, because the sand will cut you down like a razor. But if you walk into the very center of sandstorm, you can cope with it more easily. So when we find the crisis, we should walk into its heart. We shouldn't cover it. We should be able to think about the costs which drifts us to here. If you have a meaning of meaning and aim, you have a higher life satisfaction, more positive emotions, more optimist. So a sense of aim is important for all of us. There are some quotes from different thinkers. Viktor Frankl, most important motto is also one of the most important mottos of psychotherapy. Maybe we cannot change our environment, but our sorrow, but we can change our attitude towards it. In this way, we can add consistency, honor, and solution to our life. Another American life has a similar saying. We cannot select what's happening to us. We cannot choose what's happening to us, but we can choose not to be diminished by them. This is one of the most important meanings to dwell upon. Martin Buber says, our task is to find our unique and idiosyncratic meaning and aim within the endless possibilities. And Viktor Frankl again says that we don't invent but discover meaning. So an aim of therapy is to answer call of meaning and to harness the life to manage it. What are therapeutic methods? Existential attribution, to question why, to ask the question why over and over, to find good answers to something, to fast forward future scenarios. When I work with young people, I do it frequently. How do you imagine yourself in your 40? Where do you hope to be when you are 50? In order to save them from the pressure of the moment. Movie exercises. If your life was a movie, what would it be like? If you could do whatever you would want now, what would you have you done? These are some questions which are elaborating on existential things, which clients will benefit from it if they have meaning and aim problems in the life. Sometimes with their first sentence, they make a great opening. There are very nice openings in chess, you know. Client tells you a sentence, and it's such an opening that you have to take a very important move against it. For example, someone comes to your office and says, first sentence, I am, there is a great resentment between me and God, for example. Some therapy sessions are poems. Because they lived like a poem, they just bring a poem to the professor. If you are equipped enough to respond it, you will have a better session. We don't have few people who have aim and meaning problems, and there are many people who can bring this as a problem to you. The problems such as shame or loneliness, or who is passing through an important era, an important disease, where you will ask serious questions. Freedom is not to do what we like, according to existential therapy, but to listen to the call of conscience and to do what a situation requires. This is an example of a therapy dialogue. A client have the guilt of not to look after his or her mother and father. Sorry, just the opposite. A client cannot leave his or her parents to old people's home and to dedicate all his or her life to them. And there is a mental complex. Did I waste my life by looking after my parents? Therapist says, Let's assume that you didn't look after your parents. What would happen to them? Clients, I think they would have been sent to old people's home, which would kill my father because he was a proud man. Therapist, you saved your parents with your sacrifice. Were your efforts in vain? Client, I don't have remorses. For them, only I was there. They gave me life, and I could add a few years to their life. This means something. So, to make one think about value of the act that person undertook. We had a training session, a training panel, two Americans, one African, one Pakistani. Professors were there. One of them said, it really touched me. It was really touching to me. A Pakistani academic member working abroad as an academic member, he or she had a nice position. When his or her father became sick, let's call her she came back to her country and began to work in Lahore University. This is a choice, she said. If I had not returned my country, I looked after my dad. He died in my arms. This was my choice. If I had not returned to country, and if my father had died away from me, I would have grieved for all of my life. To grieve for the whole life. This is a choice, he said. Our lives are limited to choices. Why we are doing what we are doing? How many more minutes do I have? 5 more, okay. We have to question ourselves. Logotherapy are using some methods. What would you wish if you had 3 wishes? How would you arrange your life if you could do whatever you liked? If you could decide about your future, how would you live the coming 3 years? What kind of a meaning would you want for life? If you had written your own tombstone, what you would write? If you encountered with a killer and asked for a life for living, what would you have told him? Sometimes I am doing this with clients. Midnight, you went to kitchen and there is a cold barrel on your front, and the killer asked for a reason to convince him. Many people say that I have children. It's not convincing for a killer or a murderer. These are thought exercises. Existential therapy tells us about purpose, understanding, responsibility, and enjoyment related to life. What do I mean with understanding? How do I understand myself, life, and life as a whole? Responsibility, how can we give more measured, more moderate, and meaningful reactions, and enjoyment, how we can enjoy life? Okay, let's go. A few words from Frankl. Human is a finite being with a limited freedom. It's not freedom from conditions, but the freedom of assuming an attitude towards conditions. One of the most important approaches of him. There might be a meaning in sorrow. Sorrow is an indispensable part of life as a destiny, and that without sorrow, humans' lives is not complete. We should have a nice way of accepting sorrow or pain. The words acı means both sorrow and pain. Meaning-focused therapy to accept the sorrowful events, to believe in the probability of change, to take action, to discover healing meaning, to evaluate change, meaning creating interventions sometimes involve story like narrations, help people to review their life, self-respect, controllability of life, life and justice are themes which are attracting our attention. Meaning can be discussed in many different perspectives. I will not be listing them, but we can understand different things from understanding or meaning. Productivity, being able to choose one's attitude, lead us to meaning. The epidemic of meaninglessness kept busy to Western thinkers. Heidegger called it Tasman. Sartre speaks about nothingness. Robert Musil thinks about unqualified man. It can, any kind of system which reduces one into meaninglessness, for example, modern capitalist system, undermines this sense of meaning. Acceptance is very important in sense of meaning. To accept life within its integrity, to see self-compassion despite our limits and faults, to know how to accept faulty people, to decrease strict prejudices, not to complain from fortune or being unfortunate, and to decrease the fear of uncertainty. All these are important. Frankl has a concept, tragic optimism. Tragedy is hidden in life. We all have this ability of losses. We lose whom we love. We lose things that are important for us. But to be optimistic despite this, to be optimistic despite tragedy, to work to future with what we have learned from past, to say a or yes to life despite all tragicness of life, to know inherent meaning of life and to dare to cope with challenges. The basic problems of meaning-focused therapy. What's important for you? What do you really want from life? And what's really important in reality? To make one ask these questions. To wake up or to arouse the system of values or spirituality in one's. I think I am closing to the end. Let's end with Tevfik Fikret. I don't ask for hope from anyone. I am the one who is determining his own limits. It is like I am a poet with a free idea, education, and consciousness. I don't ask for anything from anyone. I am a vagabond in my own sky. I won't bow my head. Kierkegaard says that if there is a possibility, there is hope. We have to look for that possibility, that probability. Why do we live? What's the meaning of life? Emily Dickinson has an answer. If I can protect a heart from being broken, it will mean that I will not have lived in vain. If I save a life from sorrow, if I can stop a pain, or if I can put back a field fare back to its nests, it will mean that I didn't live in vain. Thank you.